Finally, I get to make a video on a bike, and I know you're excited, and I'm excited, and we'll get to the bike maybe in a different video, but patience, children, patience. I wanted to talk about something first that's kind of been on my mind on this gorgeous, beautiful Taiwan day. And before I talk about it, I want to sort of preface it with a bit of psychology. It's something called the Peter Pan syndrome, and you may have heard of it, especially if you study psychology, but if not, it's basically people in their 30s, or when they turn 30 rather, and they enjoy themselves as though they were teenagers. You know, they say that it's caused by overbearing, overprotective mothers, and you especially see that in China with the Little Emperor effect, and ADV did a video on that. It's brilliant. But I wanted to talk about more how it affects foreigners, so not really talking about overprotecting, overbearing mothers, but I wanted to talk about the aspect of people just sort of avoiding responsibility, which is essentially what the Peter Pan syndrome is, right? So you don't get a serious job, you don't get yourself into a serious relationship, you don't acquire any real wealth, you're just sort of messing about. And it's called the Peter Pan syndrome because, well, I'm sure you guys know the story of Peter Pan, is this boy who doesn't grow up. He doesn't want to grow up because he's scared of it, right? And he doesn't want to become an adult, and I guess the adult in this situation is represented by Captain Hook, who's this ugly older person who he's got a hook and he's all messed up and he's just not something that is really appealing, especially to children. And so, you've got Peter Pan, this boy who looks at Captain Hook and he says, why would I ever want to be that? Why would I ever want to have to bear that kind of existence? He's being chased by that crocodile, that alligator or whatever, which is, I guess, time, because we're all being chased by time eventually. And so he says, why would I ever want to be a grown-up? So I'm going to just live my life how I want to. I'm just going to have fun, right? Which, of course, isn't real. That's why all the food they eat isn't actually there and all that kind of stuff in the story. And he becomes king of the Lost Boys, and he just never bears any responsibility. And that's it, right? That's why it's called the Peter Pan syndrome. And you see a lot of that happen in the West, right? But and you'd be right. People do that here all the time. And you're right. But I wanted to talk about how it affects foreigners, especially young foreigners that come here, in their early 20s or whatever, because it can happen. It's really easy to fall into that trap, especially in a place like Asia, because you come here as a young man or young woman, whatever, and things are new and exciting, but then, of course, naturally things get quite uncomfortable because you're not used to the environment, right? And so you're just sort of grasping for some sense of at least belonging, like, fuck responsibility. I just want to find a place where I can belong, because you don't speak the language, and, at least at that point in culture shock, and things are, you might be upset with the environment that you're in, so you're constantly trying to grasp for some level of belonging, and then so it's easy to fall into that, right? You go to the same bar, you talk to the same foreigners, and and then that's it, and you get your job, and you don't move, you just stay like that, because if you progress any further into that, it's you don't want to lose that sense of comfort that you've got by hanging out with your group of foreigners, okay? And so you stay here for a couple of years, the next thing you know, you're 30 years old and you're doing the same thing. And so you see a lot of these older guys, who don't have a job that they take seriously, they don't have a wife, they don't have any money, they're just, doing the same thing they were doing when they were 22. And you see that a lot in Taiwan, you see it a lot in China, and I wouldn't be surprised if you saw it a lot in Korea and Japan. It's really difficult to kind of escape that as a foreigner because you've invested so much of your life in this place and you don't want to leave. You don't have to go home and have to bear responsibility because it would feel like your time here would be a waste. So it's easy to fall into that trap. And that's just kind of what I wanted to talk about is this concept that's been on my mind, Peter Pan foreigners. I'm not saying that every foreigner is like that, this sort of nobody or this, man children essentially. You can have it a lot of different ways as a foreigner here. You can be successful, and I've met a lot of people that, are successful. Whoa, that was neutral. You've got people that can open up bars, you got people that open up diners or restaurants or start a successful YouTube channel. We'll talk about that in a minute. Or you don't, and you just stay here and you mess about, and you don't take your time here sort of seriously at all. And then you've got the other type of foreigner who just, again, like Peter Pan says, well, why do I want to do that? I want to mess around. I have my bar, I have my women. I don't see a point in growing up, I guess, if you want to put it like that. And that's fine, if you want to have that mentality, if you want to just enjoy your life without having any kind of responsibility, I guess. I keep using that word, but at the end of the day, you're still like an incompetent, irresponsible man-child, and don't expect a woman to take you seriously, at least if you're looking for a serious relationship, and don't expect a potential employer to take you seriously, because, what are you at the end of the day? Because at the end of the day, like, it's not enough, because the world as a whole, as it views you, it doesn't care about who you are. And that means that, like, the world doesn't care if you're a nice person or a generous person or if you, are a virtuous person, although you should be those things. It doesn't care. What it cares about is what you can offer it. What skills do you have? What can you provide? What can you contribute to whatever society you happen to be living in? That's what it cares about. I mean, you should be a nice person and you should be generous. It's just the world doesn't care. What can you offer? What stories do you have to tell? If you want a concrete example of someone who I would consider a successful foreigner, would be C-Milk. Okay, you take a look at his older videos, and a lot of his older videos is him messing around and drinking and having fun with his friends and being irresponsible. And he and I especially really catered to that type of foreigner, that young, or at least maybe not that type of foreigner, but that young kind of aspiring expat who just wants to come and mess around, which was fine at the time. But you look at our sub count, at least when I was on Loud A6, and we weren't really going anywhere. And it wasn't until I think he did Conquering Southern China is when he really, I remember we had this conversation. He's like, I can't make these videos anymore. I can't drink on camera. I can't say bad words. I need to have something to say. And he does now. I mean, it's amazing to see that, because now he actually has things to say. He can articulate himself. He has arguments, And he can do that, one, because he's an educated guy. He comes from an educated family. And, he's very good at formulating his arguments. And you can see that progression in his videos. And you can see that progression in his videos and in his personality online. I mean, C-Milk is still a fun guy. He still drinks. He still parties. He just doesn't show it online. And you can see of course, you could make a strong argument. Of course, his editing skills went through the roof, and he just the production quality in general went up. But I think more than that, you can just look at who he is as a person online and who he caters to now, who is sort of an older, more of a responsible type of person. And now he gets tons of views and tons of subscribers because he grew the fuck up. I mean, Winston too, although I suspect Winston's kind of always been like that, because Winston has strong arguments and he rarely backs down from them. And a lot of people hate him, but that's because what he says is true online. They might be hard truths to listen to, but they're still true. And I can attest to that personally, because that's where a lot of the hate comments come from on my videos anyways, or at least a lot of people that dislike me, is just the fact that I cater to that type of person, that young guy. And, I sell myself as this sort of incompetent, irresponsible foreigner, and then that gives foreigners a bad name, right? Because other foreigners who are trying to make it and trying to be responsible are kind of held back by this stereotype that a lot of Asians have about foreigners. We mess around, and we go from woman to woman to woman, and we just take advantage of their society as a free-for-all, because, they don't know what's expected of foreigners, and half the time you don't know what's expected of yourself as a foreigner, and that's why it's easy to not bear any responsibility, because there's no pressure on you to bear any responsibility or take anything seriously. Now, I know you might be thinking, like, there's no way I'm taking life advice from a guy like you, Prazi, and that's fair enough, but it's been on my mind lately because, I'm 26, eh? I'm going to be 27 soon, and 30 is right around the corner. And I, get to look at myself and go back at my old YouTube videos, and it's like, and a lot of foreigners feel like this when they've been abroad for a number of years. It's like, what the fuck am I doing? It's like I have nothing. Oh my God, it's so windy. I gotta get off this industrial. I don't know why I thought it was a good idea to take you guys out to here. I thought maybe I could find some countryside, and it's just like industry land. Yay. And, if you allow me to get selfish and talk about myself for a little bit, back in Canada when I was in university, I, had a job while I was in, because I had to pay for it. And I was living with my girlfriend in this place called Vanier in Ottawa. It's just a fucking ghetto. It was awful. But, I tried after high school to kind of be somebody and garner that responsibility. But there was always something in the back of my head that felt like, you know, I'm missing something because I couldn't do whatever I wanted because I was sort of being constrained by having to be responsible for, my girlfriend and the apartment I was living in and getting good grades in university and going to work because I worked in a kitchen back then. So, I had to work from 5 p.m. to 2 o'clock in the morning, and then I had to be up at 8 o'clock until however long, the lecture was. So I was working all the goddamn time, and it felt like I missed kind of the fun part of my adulthood, And so me and my ex kind of broke up. Not related to that, it was for other reasons, but she broke up, and I finished university, and I got a job working in the field I was studying in. I was really happy, and I bought my dream car, a TT86, which it was just fun. I was this 22-year-old fucking kid essentially with this decent job and a good car, and I was happy. But even then, I knew I always wanted to move to Asia, so I dropped everything. I quit my job and I sold the car I freaking bought like less than a year before, and I moved to China. And I Peter Pan the fuck out of China. I had a blast, don't get me wrong, but I mean, what did I leave there with? Sure, okay, I left there with good stories and a few other skills and some other things, and that's all fine, but I didn't acquire any real tangible, anything like that. And that's a big reason why I left China, because I couldn't take that country seriously. I couldn't take any job I had seriously, and I almost chose those jobs. And I'm not saying every job is like that, but for me, it was difficult to take even Chinese people and the whole society as a whole seriously. And I admit that I really had a hard time taking that place seriously, because it is a great place. And me and Simok have said this, frequently, is it's a great place to just mess around, to Peter Pan yourself, but I don't think it's a place to settle down, and that's part of the reason why I moved to Taiwan, is because it's a place I can take more seriously. And I do. I friggin' love it here. And I'm tired of these fucking comments that are like, "Oh, Prozzy, you still like Taiwan? Well, you must be in the fucking, what do you say there? The honeymoon period." And it's like, fuck you. I've lived abroad for so long. You think I don't know what a honeymoon period looks like? And I admit, I'm in a bit of a honeymoon period. But at the same time, like, I can still enjoy myself. I can still be happy. But where the criticism should go is the fact that that's just not enough. Because I don't have a lot, and I'm not someone to look up to, as a young man anyways, and that's what I'm working on in my life, is trying to grow up, I guess. And I guess that's it. That's all I wanted to talk about is, if you're going to move abroad, I mean, do it. And I'm going to make another subsequent video talking about the values of moving abroad as well, what it can do for you. This whole Peter Pan syndrome is a potential danger for foreigners that stay here for too long. But I will make a video about why it's good to be here. And you should move abroad. I don't mean to discourage you. I just think that after some time and after you learn and grow, make something of it. Take your experiences and take the things that you've learned and contribute. Be somebody, I think. So anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching. Stay positive, or don't. Maybe be a responsible person. Definitely keep your stick on the ice. And, again, I will be making a video talking about this bike, and I will tell you what it is and all that, and I'll give it a review. And I'm about to show my patrons it so they can hopefully do a better job of naming it, because, of course, they couldn't see the thing. And I got other videos coming up because it's Chinese New Year, so Xin Yan Kuai Le to all my Chinese and Asian viewers. And so I got some other trips planned, and I'll take you guys along to explore some areas that I've never been to because, of course, I haven't explored too much of Taiwan yet, and I'm really excited for that. So, yeah, stay positive. See you in the next one.